Hi everyone, in this video I'm just going to have a quick recap of rounding. This is a pretty common question in exam papers, and it's one that I think, because it's usually quite easy, it stumps people if they haven't seen it in a while. Let's have a quick look at rounding and how we can remember it. So the first thing is, when we're working with rounding, we've got to think of our place value column. So as a reminder, remember we've got the thousands, hundreds, tens, ones, decimal places, and then we've got tenths, hundreds, and thousands. Okay, and essentially what we are trying to think is, if they say round a number to the nearest 10, so let's say they said round 49 to the nearest 10, essentially what we are trying to think is, are we trying to see, is it closer to 40 or is it closer to 50? That's kind of the idea we're thinking with rounding, but we have a few methods to make sure we get the right answer. Okay, so bear in mind these place value columns, and then we'll get into how we use them in a sec. So again, let's look at a pretty example of round 52 to the nearest 10. So what we've got to do is, we are rounding it to the nearest 10. So thinking of those columns, we are going to underline our 10, okay, because that's what we're trying to round. We're trying to make sure we round our 10. And then we underline the one that we're rounding to, so it's the 10, and we circle the number next to it. Okay, so in this case, we've got 52, we want to round it to the nearest 10. We underline the 5, the 2 is going to tell us if we round up or round down. Okay, so the rule is, if that circled number is smaller than 5, we round down. If that circled number is 5 or bigger, we round up. Okay, there's lots of rhymes to remember this, so have a look if you're struggling to remember these rules. But what that means for this 52 is, because that 2 is smaller than 5, okay, so that circled number is smaller than 5, means we're going to round down to the nearest 10. So we are going to round this number to 50. A good way to think of this as well, if you're a little bit uncertain what you should be rounding to, is if you look at 52 and we are rounding it to the nearest tens. So it's always going to be 52. It's either going to be 50 or 60. And you just got to see which number is it closer to. So is 52 closer to 50 or closer to 60? And we can see it's closer to 50. So that method works too. Let's have a look at another few examples where we might be rounding to different place values. So if we look at this one, round 421 to the nearest 100. Okay, we're rounding to the nearest 100. So first thing we always do, we underline the number we're rounding. So we're looking at 100, and then the number next to it is what tells us. So we've got 2 next to it. So again, 2 is smaller than 5, so it means that we are going to round down. And so if we are rounding down, we are going from 421, we are just going to round it to 400. Or if you prefer thinking of it in terms of the diagram, we can say, okay, I've got 421. I want to round it to 100 that's nearby. So I can either round it to this first value, so 400, or I can round it to the next 100, which is 500. And you've got to see which one is it closer to. So it's easier to get from 21 down to 0, or from 21 all the way up to 500. So it's easier to do the 400 option. Let's try another one. So same number, 421, but now we are rounding to the nearest 1. Sorry, I don't think that's actually going to work. Let's say we're rounding to the nearest 10. So if we are rounding to the nearest 10, it means we underline the 10 and then we circle the number next to it. Okay, so 421, we underline the 10, circle the number next to it. 1 is smaller than 5. Okay, so that circled number is smaller than 5, which means we're going to be rounding down again in this one. And we just need to be careful about how we round down. So 421, we're rounding it to the nearest 10. So we want to see it's going to round down to just 420. Okay, so that's just going to become 420. Our other way of writing it with the diagrams, if I get a different color pen here, we could just say, I have 421. I want to round it to the nearest 10. So it's either going to be 420 or it's going to be 430. And in this case, it rounds down to 420. Same principle, they can throw any sort of rounded to whatever value you want. Same idea. So here we are rounding 5.72 to 1 decimal place. Okay, so we're looking 1 decimal place, and then this tells us rounding up or down. Okay, again, 5.722 tells us we round down. We seem to have lots of those rounding down ones in this one. And so what we say is 5.72, we're going to round down, so it is just going to become 5.7. Okay, that was the aim. So in this one, we were trying to see if I have 5.72, is it going to go to 5.7 or is it going to go to 5.8? Okay, and if you think of it in terms of 72, is it going to go to 70 or is it going to go to 80? We can see it's going to go to 70, so it's going to go to 5.7. I hope that helped and made some semblance of sense. Let me know if you have any questions. I don't mind going through some others.